hand over to Brendon, McNiven and Weve from the University of Melbourne.
Yep. So yeah, just before I start, I'd like to acknowledge that Weve from engineering is there behind me to support me and answer the more technical questions, I hope. So the Integrated Design Studios are a partnership between Melbourne School of Engineering and Melbourne School of Design at Melbourne University. So I thought I'd take you quickly through what the Integrated Design Studios are in case you haven't seen them before, but I won't spend too much time because we have presented this a couple of times. So the aim of the Integrated Design Studios is to try and actually marry architecture and engineering a bit better in the buildings that we produce. So it actually gets done very well in industry, but it's quite sporadic and it gets thwarted from the early stages of a project where there's very high ideals about sustainability and performance to the back end of projects where short-term thinking and other things get in the way. So what we're doing is modelling studios in the architectural school at Melbourne University and actually at University of Wollongong and QUT at the moment also. And they work on two levels. The first level is to explore how architects and engineers interact and try to actually learn some practical lessons on how we might improve that. So they're the integrated design processes. And then the second part is because we do that in micro design environments on buildings, we explore a whole lot of different building types. And the ideas that come out of that building exploration, we document and hopefully at the end of the day, we'll end up with a compendium of design ideas on how to better have architecture and engineering work together on projects, improve building performance and actually improve the architecture at the same time. So it's a resource that our industry will be able to lean back on and get a bit of a start on the projects they're looking at. So they're set up on a win-win basis. So we have clients come in, and clients are an incredibly important part of the project. So the nexus of power in projects is architects and engineers on the design side, with clients on everything else. So the clients will dictate how the project managers and quantity surveyors and everybody else thinks on a project. So they're very important to have into the mix. So we actually have as close to a real project and a real client as we can on jobs. We have industry consultants come in to help us out. So they have a lot of experience in design, and having that background and experience is important as a base to start from. Students are doing most of the work, and they're getting a great experience because they're working with real clients and real consultants. And then we have the academics in the university who benefit from exploring what they should be exploring, how to make industry better. That's a bigger picture on how things work. So the square off to the left is the integrated design studio that actually happens, where we get everyone in the same room preparing designs on these projects. We then take it a bit further, where the consultants spend 4 to 6 weeks doing what we call feasibility vetting. So they go through all of the ideas that were generated in the studios to decide whether they were good ideas or whether they were a bit optimistic in the heat of the moment. The design studios are pretty fluid, exploratory environments. So the consultants basically prepare a report at the end of that process to say, these things actually worked well, and these would be ideas worth following up and putting more effort into. And then as we move to the right-hand side of that picture, hopefully the clients consider putting those into their projects or into future projects. And then if the clients, after a certain time period, we actually release all of those ideas out into industry. So it gets available to everyone in industry to pick up if they'd like to as well. So that's it in a nutshell. That's a photograph of ACT schools and some of the students and consultants, and the client there in the middle, Beth Mitchell, just actually doing a measure up and starting on site, looking at some of the projects to use as a case study. These are some of the things that we've learned about integrated design so far. So we started off with a very theoretical approach from literature, and we've found that it falls down in lots of different ways, and that there's many practical things that need to happen. And I'll just pick out a couple of these. We found actually considering extremes helps. So we ask students, architects and engineers to design a purely architectural solution and then a purely engineering solution. And that's helpful because it sort of sets up the goalposts. So it means that when you end up in a solution, you know what you're giving up or not giving up on the way through. Everyone needs to be an author. That's incredibly important. And we're finding that's harder for the engineers than it is for the architects. The engineers are very used to being in consulting mode. So, you know, their problem solving methods are to look at something and looking at an existing idea and then telling people how to make it better or whether it works or doesn't work. Actually, we need engineers and architects to be coming up with ideas in their own right. And then those last couple, it's not a one size fits all. So personalities are a big thing through the process, both architectural and engineering personalities. And it really benefits from having third party curation through the process. So having someone who can actually step outside of the design and actually see what's going on in a big picture sort of way. And the way that happens in the design studios is that we have studio tutors who take on that third party curation role. So we've got 2 complete. We've got 3 that we're just doing the last reports on, and we've started another 4 or 5 at the moment. So the first one was an exercise with NextDC on data centres with Oracle and Greenbox, and I must say we're very, very thankful to have good consultants. The consultants are putting skin in the game. This is actually costing them to be involved in this, but they're learning on the way through and hopefully having a good experience as well. But they've been fantastic and produced some really good work. So data centres, the students explored a whole lot of initiatives around power generation, so renewables, and then energy harvesting and recycling. So you know, the headlines, probably unsurprisingly to people in the industry at least, data centres are extremely energy intensive facilities. So actually the renewables component was really coming out at about 1 to 2.5% of the total site usage. 1 to 2.5% of a very big number is still a big number, but I guess the thing to be wary of is that when you talk to a data centre operation, it's not going to be their core business. You know, they will do it, but their motivations are different. They'll do it out of public good and out of the goodness of their hearts. And there are some people out there, NextDC are one of those people. But the other thing that came out of that is that there's a lot of low-grade waste heat around data centres that can be used, and there's fantastic opportunities for adjacent use. So the students were looking at incorporating, you know, public swimming pools, aquatic centres, greenhouses, parks and gardens, and all of that sort of thing. So, you know, data centres, you know, sites are everything, and it's actually pretty high competition to get into the best site in a suburb. So it actually offers them opportunities to approach councils in a partnering type capacity where they could actually go in and build a data centre, you know, having it virtually as a district type energy system where you could actually power all of the heating for the pool or the greenhouse or whatever other community facility might be there. So, you know, it really did open up some opportunities as to how the businesses might work. These are just a couple of screen grabs from some of the projects. I put this one in just because I thought it was a great idea, and this partly came from the consultants as well. So this was a data centre based on containers of units so that they could actually upgrade the technology as they needed to and expand and contract and everything else, you know, as time goes on. So incredibly flexible business model. Students spent a lot of time looking at energy adjacencies and flows around the site to inform the architecture. And again, just you know, one of a typical plan looking at it all. So the students get into some quite detailed work. It's basically 15 odd weeks of design exploration and drawing and everything else. The second one we did was schools with the ACT government. Grimshaw with the architects on that project, and Arup were the engineers. Again, really grateful to the huge effort that they put in. And you know, carbon neutral is possible in schools. And the Arup guys in particular took the students through that staged process of actually looking at how you deal with energy on site, and those items on the right-hand side are some of the things that really came out to be worthwhile. The ones in bold were probably more worthwhile than the ones down below, but that's part of what this process is actually going through and figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and importantly, how you can actually weave that into the architecture so that it actually all works together. That was the headline for what's possible at the end. From a poorly performing building, and most of them seem to be in schools. They're very old building envelopes and fabric. There's the potential there to reduce energy consumption by 2/3, and to a figure that's less than 40 kilowatt hours per square metre per year. And when on the particular building that they looked at a solar array on the building, and I think the PV generation was 4 times that figure. So they can be not only carbon neutral, they can be carbon negative in how they operate. So there's lots of scope for that. And importantly, it's not just about the engineering. There's improved outcomes in terms of the building design as well. So you're getting better indoor air quality, you're getting better arrangements of classrooms and everything else. Again, just a couple of screen grabs of some of the students' work. So looking at passive and active strategies across the site, even doing some numbers around energy consumption. So they went and did a site measure and did some basic modelling with the help of the guys from Arup. We really try to push designs where things are doing a couple of things at the same time. So the top right there, you can see a pergola that's actually providing shade to a bit of a garden area down below. So it's architecture and engineering at the same time. The same over there on the left with green roofs. And some really nice ideas around flexible learning and indoor-outdoor spaces and everything else. So the first two we thought were incredibly successful. We learnt a lot. The consultants and clients learnt a lot and had a great time as well. We had really good feedback. We finished 3 last semester, for which the reporting is currently being finalised. Another school's one. Emergency response with Ambulance Victoria, who got us to look at their ambulance stations around Victoria, and aquatic centres. So that was a group of 4 Melbourne councils getting together with the consultants and the universities to look at aquatic centres. There's a number underway at the moment, aged care facilities, and they're happening in Melbourne, in QUT and in Wollongong. Laboratories with CSIRO, we hope to get off the ground next semester, and community centres as well. And so obviously there's some synergies and gains to be had in talking with Wendy and Georgios on living labs. So that's more work to be done also. But really the crux of the IDSs is to try and the rating systems have done a fantastic job in lifting the quality of sustainable design across the board, and what we're trying to do is get the first principles thinking from architects and engineers a bit more aligned, so that we can get some really nice first principle stuff that comes in around and above the point systems that already exist. And in fact, I think there's potential for ways integrated design could be incorporated into those point systems around innovation as well. So they're all discussions that we'd like to have in the future. So Lou, I've run through that fairly quickly. Is there anything in there that I might have missed?
No, Brendon, you did it very well. Thank you, Brendon.